while, we've been working a lot on the e-mobility research related to the infrastructure piece. During our research, we found out that some of the key challenges which are prevalent in India are going to have a huge impact on the implementation or taking this EV to the next level. Before I open the floor to the audience, I would like to ask the panelists here on one such challenge which they feel is very important to address it immediately so that we move forward on this EV adoption. So I would like all of you to contribute that. So what is that one challenge you feel that this is going to be an important for us to address? So in our study, we found that there are four aspects or four challenges. One is the cost. I think today morning also people were talking about cost, how to reduce cost, how to reduce the cost of the components, the batteries, etc. Second is the infrastructure, the charging points, then how to upgrade the existing grids, and we are also talking about the alternate solutions of bringing in energy. Third is the research and development, and a lot of research, and also the range anxiety. So we are talking about how to bring down the cost of various components, and also how to improve the durability of the components. I think this is again another important area, the research and the development piece. And the fourth is the consumer education and awareness. I think this is again, we need to really look into how to really create an awareness of adoption into the e-vehicles. So these are the four key challenges which came out of our study, and we feel that these four challenges should be the four cornerstones for the EVs to take it to the next level. So before I open the floor for the audience, so Raj, from a public transportation perspective, so what is that one major challenge you feel that is prevalent, and is there a solution to address that?
So I think Karthik mentioned the UP tender, right? So there are two ways of tendering. Just from their examples, private sector EV adoption seems much easier today than maybe 5 years ago. Earlier it was that who will put the charging station, where are you going to put the charging station, who's going to, and you'll have typical problem of 10 different charging companies trying to have 10 different places, my plug won't work in that plug, all that usual stuff, right? That doesn't seem to be a problem anymore because of the swapping and technological changes. In the private sector, the public sector, the issue is actually simple in terms of, if there are two models, right? One, government buys a bunch of buses, let's say, okay? This is why they end up in how big the tire should be, how big the bus should be, color and all the weight and so on and so forth. There you get into all kinds of issues of where will you put the charging station, what technology is good, competing companies and so on. The challenge and the solution is to move the model into government not worrying about like the UP model is trying to do. Don't worry, why should government worry about what is the height and weight of the bus, right? What kind of, how heavy is the battery and all that, it should be irrelevant. I think Bogota started this with the BRT model where government says, look, as democratic representatives, their job is to figure out what public wants, how much is the frequency. Frequency should be decided by the bus guy, saying that it's poor neighborhood, I won't run buses there. Nighttime I won't run a bus here because I don't make money. So separate the profit from the functionality. If government were to say this is the frequency, irrespective of night or day, we need this kind of frequency in these neighborhoods. There are poor people who need service, etc., etc., etc. And if you were to say per kilometer or per some method of tendering and saying, as far as the private operator makes money and he or she is held at a high SLA, high standard, if you set up that model, then industry can keep churning out technology changes, app, new app, old app, etc., etc., without getting into daily struggle with regulation and licensing, permitting, and so on and so forth. So I think the push from the industry should be to innovate on those models. And these models are easier said than done. As you know from tendering, sometimes what sounds wonderful ends up in a big disaster. A lot of PPP projects fail because it's not thought through properly. So I think the industry should spend a lot of time figuring out what models work in India without government getting into the nitty-gritty of technology and battery technology and all that. So as you can see, there's enough technology to make these things happen tomorrow morning if you want to. So that technology doesn't seem to be a problem here. The problem is the tendering and the what model does a Corporation of Chennai or a MTC or somebody adopt. I think a lot more time need, and frankly, I don't see much time being spent by the industry on those topics. Because every company is trying to sell a product or a service, which is fine, that's part of your job. But there has to be innovation in the way government procures and runs services for the city. Without that, we'll always be stuck in this model of, if an auto rickshaw has 5 wheels, again you go through this tendering on reform process, Delhi government has to approve, is 5-wheeled auto an auto or is it a 3-wheeled auto an auto? Why do I care? I need a good ride, I need an AC ride, and so on. You got my point. So innovation has to be in the procurement and tendering as much as in the battery technology or electricity technology. Yeah, Karthick.
Yeah, almost pretty close to what Raj said, but I look at it differently. I look at it as a soft issue with the administrative leadership in the government side. I think our ability to think differently or try things differently or try things at a larger scale. Classic example I think is Poland, where instead of running metros just in the busy areas, the guys planned another 15 kilometers extra in the metro line, and actually they made a killing in terms of real estate value appreciation. And this metro capital cost was subsidized by 60% or something by just the real estate appreciation. So the ability of the administrative leadership to actually start thinking laterally and to think bigger, I think that's the key issue. Like, you need to understand that you're no longer tendering a product and you're tendering a service. And when you're tendering a service, you focus on passenger experience and efficiency and cost, rather than the engineering metrics, etc. So it's I think as of today, that is the biggest challenge, because I don't see a solution for it. Everything else, you know how to get there, whether it's cost reduction or everything else, you know how to get there. I think this one, I really don't know how to get there, but I see that as a very important challenge. It's a soft issue.
So, I feel basically, and I'm just telling you based on our experience, we've got a tech now, and we are going to operationalize this tech. And when we are going to the market, so there is a very conducive EV policy at a national level, at a state level, the state where we operate from, Karnataka. What we see is at the grassroots level, there is no sync when it comes to the government departments. A simple thing like a power connection, it takes so many days to get a power connection. Even if you ask that I need a power connection for setting up a battery swapping station or a charging station, it goes through the same protocols, same processes like a typical business would ask for a new connection. Another challenge I've seen is around permits. Mahindra launched their auto e-trio. It was launched by 3 honorable ministers of the state. For several months, they could not register the vehicle in their own city because the transport guys, with all due respect, and I hope there's no one here, that they said that there is a notification from the center which says no permits required, and there is a notification from the state which says I'll give you 5,000 EV permits. Now which one we should follow? So we'll not register. And these are the challenges. These are real practical challenges. When we go to a place and we said, I think forget subsidies. Even if government says that okay, you want to set up a charging station or swapping station, we'll give you power connection. We'll give you probably real estate at a reasonable cost. I'm not even asking for free. That is more than enough for me. We as private sector players have created models which using innovation, using technology, that we'll get the monies for us and for our investors. But we need this ground support in terms of policy implementation. Very simple point is on even the FAME 2 policy. It doesn't talk about swapping. When you talk to the officials, it says yes, swapping is included. but where is the process? How does it work? And that's where again then it goes through multiple departments, and people talk, this is this department's role, and I have to set up a committee. And I'm sorry, I'm being very upfront, but these are real challenges. I have not been able to deploy my vehicles. I have got Piaggio on board, who's been making auto rickshaws with swappable batteries, compatible with my technology. I've got Uber on board, who says, I'm happy to deploy them in cities, and I will ensure that I incentivize this solution in such a way that the drivers will adopt it, people will love it, and we'll take it to different countries. But when it comes to a simple question, does this solution come under fame to incentive? I don't have an answer today, unfortunately. So these are the challenges that needs to be solved. The problems are right there, written on the board. Somebody needs to just take it and say, hey, it just makes logical sense. What you are trying to do is also EVs, right? So why to, why to differentiate? So I was very specific about challenges at my end, and I'm sure there will be challenges at a OEM end or at a charging station. In fact, charging station guys were struggling in the beginning because they were considered as, you cannot resell electricity, and it took them long to convince the government that this needs to be considered. But why these things? If we have a top level policy initiative that we all as a country want to promote electric vehicles, then it should just slow down to the bottom, the last guy who's signing that document of registering a vehicle or a battery or whatever. So I think these are the things we need to look at as a country.
Thank you.
This is where I was talking to you about, see, it sounds easy that why doesn't it flow like water just top to bottom? Simple example of why can't you resell electricity, right? Unless if you had done a pilot, I suspect that none of you would have thought, and nobody in government would have thought, even if everybody's proactive, let's say, everybody wants this to happen. Nobody would have thought of this idea that you are reselling electricity. So that's what I'm trying to say. Industry bodies have to do piloting, put money where your mouth is, and then, of course, if it doesn't happen, that's a different problem. See, until when you point out this recycling, see, for simple example, government officials think in terms of auditing, right? So if let's say he's a government official, he allows certain things because he's a very progressive guy or something. 5 years from now, you may not be here, so auditor guy will say, how did you allow this when it clearly says you can't resell electricity? So the point I'm trying to make is, I'm not justifying, I'm not empathizing or condoning or anything like that. Point is, a lot of this is absolutely new stuff in our country. I mean, even other countries, it's new. Here we are coming from chaos to trying to get to some place. It's absolutely new. So I think industry, this has been my perennial complaint, by the way. I used to be part of an NGO earlier, which was supported by a lot of industry people, City Connect. My perennial complaint was that industry bodies are not doing enough to do piloting and saying, look, these are all the things, and then you can argue with it. Meaning, these are all the things to be done. Then at least a progressive government can take all these different bottlenecks and clean it up. Maybe you're doing it. Maybe I'm missing a point here. But in my opinion, there's a lot of gap in. Theoretically, whatever you just said is easy. Just one day somebody could have clicked a button and said, like waterfall, or everything is done. Simple example. Solar panels, right? We did a gigantic solar panel project in Chennai. It's a huge success today, but I thought it would be the easiest project ever because the whole country is drowning in solar power. Turned out to be one of the most difficult things because you have a Delhi subsidy, you have a local subsidy, you have a electricity department versus regulator, net metering versus gross metering. These are all real regulatory problems, right? So it's not like everybody sits in one room and says, okay, well, what do we all agree and sign off on a paper and boom, something happens. It's all in different compartments, different pieces. So I think my nutshell advice is take all the piloting that you've done as an industry body, get to the central level, state level, give them the benefit of doubt that they are really serious about it. Then point out, then I think at some high level, they'll have to get in the electricity person, the regulator, the transport people, etc., etc. Otherwise, what I see is that different people will be running into different departments and chambers, and they can only consider their piece. If I were an electricity bureaucrat, I'll say, look, as per law, even though I want to support you, as per law, you are not supposed to do this. Now what do I do? So every bottleneck, you get stuck. So I think piloting is required. Let me put it that way. A lot more piloting is required.
Thanks, Raj. Now I open the floor for questions.
Can you circulate the mic?
Sir, my name is Vijayan. The Tesla car, the battery weight is 300 kgs. I would like to compliment the Sun Mobility, who are the suppliers of battery for Ashok Leyland. That's what I think is that. How did you manage this 500 kg, 600 kg? Are you doing it in India or is it imported?
No, this is, I think, there's no rocket science. We are just reducing the size of battery. If you look at a normal bus, I mean, it will have 200 or 250 or in fact up to 350 kilowatt hour of battery packs built in to give you a 200 kilometer, 250 kilometer daily range. What we've done is we've just reduced the range requirement to limiting it to what is required to do the trip. So that 65 kilowatt hour weighs 650 kgs and allows them to do just one trip. So in a non-AC bus you can do 50 kilometers, in an AC bus you can do around 32, 33 kilometers, and which is good enough for that trip. So we solved it through maths, not through tech, I would like to say.
Batteries are made in India.
Yeah, we are assembling the battery packs at our facility in Bangalore. The cells are of course imported, but all the tech, the design of the pack, design of the module, the battery management system, the connectivity, all of that is in-house, and we are building the packs at our facility in Bangalore.
Yuvraj, I have a question. You talked about battery swapping. It's good to hear. Is there any standard for battery size? Is there any standard for frame size? This is my question number one. And the second question is, you are able to get associated with Ashok Leyland, and you supplied some battery where tech is done by you, and probably the cells must be imported from China or somewhere with the jacketing and all those, and BMS you must have done. So my question is these batteries are interchangeable? Can Ashok Leyland go tomorrow and some other Y company and procure these batteries? Or, I mean, just for example, our Ashok Leyland will be depending on you forever and you have a virtual monopoly to supply it forever?
Business is a combination of trust and competitiveness. So you start a relationship with exclusivity and you retain the option of going to alternate sources. That's precisely what's been done. But to your point, standardization, I think the classic example are your EOT cranes. Long ago when they started, you could not change parts from another competitor. You had to take the entire system and rely on him for spares. No longer the case now. You don't need to have the hook assembly from the same guy who had the gantry. These were standardized over a period of time. Definitely standardization is required. First, you need business, volume, and activity. Standardization is such a large topic because across vendors and across OEMs, you've got to come to an agreement. The work is going on, not as well as I would expect or want it to be, but once it gets standardized, there will be reinvestments both by Ashok Leyland and Sun Mobility or other suppliers or other OEMs. We will rework to comply with those standards because there are right now far too many options, and those options are also shifting by the quarter, technically. They're not stable. So it's an evolving technology, so we have to play it with partnerships right now, but we can play it with open options at a later date. But point completely conceded, without standardization, swap is not going to go too far. And we need to necessarily have standardization. This is the time to start work on it. If I expect it, I will never get started, so we have found alternate solutions.
Yeah, that's great. My question, mainly from the viewpoint, because we know we have printers, and once we buy a printer is at 1500 rupees, but we spend 3000 rupees for cartridge. And we have no choice except to go to the same company again and again. So I see a potential risk because I know these companies are all plastic encapsulated coming from China. Probably we have done some IT because we are a good country to do IT. Rest is all hardware and everything is coming from China and other part of the world, and we are bringing it here. My only worry is that if I have in my scooter Sun Mobility battery today, and tomorrow some moon mobility is there, and I am passing through the moon mobility, but I am helpless. I cannot buy the moon mobility and I have to depend on sun mobility. That is my worry point. So I want Yuvraj to answer it.
Of course. And I think just to add to your agony, you are already a victim of something like this. If you look at Android.
Yuvraj, no. It is not agony or victim. It is against the monopoly act of this country, right? No, so because I know why today we have not seen any government official here, because these are the issue, and swappability is perfectly fine, but then there has to be a standard, and interchangeability is a must. Otherwise, the company you are buying from China today, it goes bankrupt after 4 years or closes after 4 years, and you will have no same product available for future. That is my worry point. No agony, nothing.
Let me I think Karthik very well articulated the point on standardization. I'll probably add some more color to it and share. See, if you look at standardization, I think there are certain factors that needs to be standard. First is obviously the shape, size, the form factor. Second is the communication protocol, and the third part of it is the voltage levels. Usually these are the three main critical things. If you can standardize, then you can have interoperability across things. So as Karthik mentioned, we are completely in for participating in the process, which has to be led by the government or some common body or an industry body which tries to bring in standardization. I think as a country we are in a phase where everyone is trying out a solution with the hope that this is the ideal solution for the country. And over time, there will be a consolidation where there will be a de facto standard emerging, which will be like the most adopted standard. And I think that is how an Android came into picture. If you look at Android, what is Android today? It is a global de facto private standard and adopted by everyone, used by everyone. People who are using an iPhone cannot charge from a charger which is used by an Android phone. There are several apps that do not work in the iOS ecosystem, or you might have to create a separate app for an iOS ecosystem versus a Android. And earlier there was a BlackBerry. There was also another ecosystem. So I think this is how a technology will evolve. Initially, everyone will try out with their options. At one point of time, there may or may not be a government intervention towards standardization, and it's a completely organic process. You may just see that if there are companies like today, we are proud to say we are working with 10 OEMs who have adopted and accepted our batteries as a standard in their vehicles, and we are talking to 5 more. So for us, we believe interoperability, as you mentioned, is very important. In terms of dependence on
interchangeability.
Of course, interchangeability, I said we are completely open to be participating in the process where a third party or a consortium, in fact, just to bring you a point, and if Jyot is here from IIT Madras, we were part of a process which was initiated by IIT Madras 2 years back, where several of us were part of a forum or a committee where we all were discussing on what should be the standard for swappable battery. Unfortunately, that committee's recommendation could not get formalized. So there is no standard in the country. Otherwise, there would have been a standard, and we are following exactly those specs because we believe that those were the ones which were accepted by most OEMs. So we are completely open to it. When it comes to the point on technology from China, so I would like to say it's not just using our IT, it is beyond IT. I think the tech which is operating in China is not suitable for India because of our operating conditions, which Karthik rightly mentioned in his presentation. We have flooding, we have roads with potholes, we've got extreme summers. So we've done much more than just simply taking something from China and building it. Our supply chain is based out of 2 continents, and we are evaluating 5 more suppliers. We want to create a battery pack which is battery cell technology agnostic, because we believe battery cell technology is evolving every year. The first battery pack that we created in 2017-18 for 2 and 3 wheeler was 15 kgs, 1.3 kilowatt hour. Today, the same box contains 1.5 kilowatt hour, plus it is weighing only 13 kgs. So that is how we have been able to evolve the battery without changing the form factor. And I think that these are the things where, these are some of the nuances where companies need to get into, tech needs to come out. Just look at examples of micro USB as a standard for charging your phone. These all have evolved over time. It cannot happen from day one where you don't have an experience. We don't know our standard is the best standard for the country or somebody else's standard is best for the country today. But maybe after 2 years of, as Raj mentioned, we'll do pilots. We are doing pilots with Ashok Leyland, we are doing pilots with Piaggio. And as you know, things will be there on the road, people will get to know by themselves that this is the right way or the other, and eventually standards will come and we'll support that.
Yeah, thanks, Yuvraj. We don't have much time. Probably we can have further questions during the tea break. We are going to close this session. Before closing this session, just I want to highlight some of the key takeaways of this particular session. Number one, very important, is more than the policy change, piloting is very relevant, and we need to adopt piloting. Especially the industry group should be adopting piloting than focusing on the policy change or focusing on different other initiatives. So piloting a particular initiative is very, very important. And also to focus on multiple systems, focus on multiple stakeholders to really implement a project. Maybe for example, if it is going to be a charging station, if we have multiple types of charging types, so how to integrate all of them in one place. Next, about the safety, the business model, the product. So that is very, very critical, very important. Unless until we have the safety, we don't really have this particular product in place. The design and the Indianized way of looking at things is very important. Shared transit is one thing which is completely coming out of these discussions. Enabling open competition. Government should be open to tendering, scheduling capacity and services rather than the products or the buses. So it's a very interesting session today, and I think going forward we are going to have a couple of more sessions. Lot of learnings today, and thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you very much.